is funk. Thoughts deep, boys steeped in the depths that he sunk. Big stress, depressed in the middle of fall. Sky gray, high late in the thick of it all. I wonder, how long can a human survive just staying alive or carrying the rest of the tribe? Waiting for the day to arrive or struggling dies, and I be doing way, way more than getting by. So why? Cop myself a cup of coffee, sipping water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Hey, cop myself a cup of coffee, sipping water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Realize life is so much more than just living a day. Every day I can sit and reflect and reconnect to myself and know that I've been given. See, giving up is not an option. So when I'm looking at gray skies, I'll be adopting a new way to deal with a test. Lord, relieve me of stress and bring me looking like when blessings drop in. And so I cop myself a cup of coffee, sipping water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Coffee, sipping water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Hey, here we go. Yeah. Let's do this. Y'all ready? 1, 2, 3. In times of test, let no harm beset me, oh my Lord, oh my Lord.
Well, good evening, everybody. I certainly hope that you can hear me. And I say that seriously because I had major problems with my computer the last week and a half. Real problems. The logic board was fried. It took me a while to figure that out. And I took it to Apple. They did a lot of work on it, and they couldn't figure it out until later. And anyway, I got it back. I got it back yesterday, and it still didn't work. This morning I was going crazy trying to figure it all out. Certain programs weren't opening up, and I just basically had to erase the drive and install the operating system again. The woman on support from Apple said, it's probably just the best way, and I had to individually add some of these things in. So here we are. I expect to have a guest tonight. Oh, geez, I don't know what the heck's going on. I got like a spider on me or something. I don't know what that is. Oh, no, it's a thread. I expect to have a guest tonight. As you know, Dave can't make it. Dave is in Eastern Europe, and I believe he's on his way to Hungary. I told him he should have an Orban protest, though I don't think he's going to do that. And Ryan can't make it tonight. But, on the other hand, my good friend Paul McGinley just mentioned to me he's going to be joining us. He's going to get some water on for some tea. So if you would like to join us for the cocktail hour, it doesn't have to be an alcoholic beverage. It could be maybe some tea or coffee, whatever we'd like for you to join us on Divided We Stand. And as usual, my introduction for Divided We Stand, if you are unfamiliar with this channel, this is Divided We Stand. We are a political channel. We are in the belief that we cannot in any way negotiate with the Republican Party and Republicans in general if they are Trump supporters. And we just feel the situation is untenable. We essentially have a fascist state right now. So we ask that you subscribe. We are not monetized. So we're not asking for anything, just a conversation. It's a conversation piece. You'll have to forgive me. I know the camera's here, but it just takes a lot. I have to change my seating to make this work, so I'm not reading a teleprompter. Okay. Also, you can find us on the Facebook group page. It's called Divided We Stand also. And we ask that you become a member. It's a wonderful page. We have 1,500 members, and it's growing. Even though it's a private group, it's a safe place to stay. You know, if you're on Facebook, it's very, very difficult to have conversations on your personal page. I mean, at one time, maybe 6 years ago, 7 years ago, the second year of the Trump administration, or I shouldn't say the administration, the regime, you could see that things were kind of going that way, that people were losing friends, getting in arguments over politics. I couldn't do it anymore. Dave couldn't do it. And it was just my idea that, you know, look, there are group pages out there on Facebook, you know, for whatever it is, vegetarians, for dog lovers, cat lovers. But this one had to be for politics because anybody on the farmhouse could see that this was going to go in the wrong direction, and it has. So you needed a safe place to stay, else you would be having arguments with your ex-friends, your ex-family members, or just anybody. And it's infuriating. So that is the basis for Divided We Stand. We also ask that you share this, if you would. We are not, again, we're not monetized, but we do want to have strength in numbers. So we ask that you share this if you can. Okay. All right. So, as I said, I had a lot of computer problems, and it was hardware. And then after that, it was basically corrupted files on Time Machine. Time Machine is a program that allows you to just grab your information from your computer that needs to migrate to your new computer, and it just wasn't worthwhile. So didn't have a lot prepared for tonight, but I do think that this is appropriate for this show tonight. I think that, you know, I called this Cocktail Hour. I'm a big fan of watching Dan Bell and Rick Serra on YouTube, and they have this Cocktail Hour show. I think it's Rick Serra's show, but I like the concept of it, being able to chill with friends and shoot the shit. And I say that truthfully because, you know, looking at this country, this fascist government, it's very, very difficult to deal with the externals. There's a lot of stress out there. I don't have to tell you that. But when it comes to you and me, the individual, it really is more about how we respond to that stress. And we certainly don't want to eat us apart, which is, again, why we created this channel, is to keep away from those people. It was going nowhere. But in these 4 years to come, or longer than that, each of us, and I'm talking about myself too, this person sitting in this seat, one must come up with ways to be able to adapt to the situation. And that doesn't mean you have to shut your eyes and do nothing, because you have to do something. You do have to do something. So I want to separate that from being able to react to stress in the right way. What do I do, you ask, perhaps? Well, obviously, you want to create, dopamine, make you feel better. And dopamine, obviously, is something that comes out when you are in anticipation of some type of pleasure, or you are, exercising. And I think that's where, I go with this. I don't watch the news in general. I do read. I do what Dave does now. I generally don't even watch MSNBC. Not that I don't like MSNBC. I just can't deal with Joe Scarborough. So the morning show, I don't watch that. I may catch Chris Hayes. I may catch Lawrence O'Donnell. But in general, I try to zone out from it. When I'm at work, it's all business because I have a professional responsibility. But it does help me because I can do nothing but attend to the audience that's in front of me. And that kind of saves me. So, when people talk about work, you can't wait till you retire and you've been up all these years. And some of you who are watching this are retired. But I've thought about that too. My wife mentioned something kind of interesting about audiences. When you are teaching for as long as I have, 41 years, you do get used to an audience. And not in any kind of egotistical way, but you're used to that audience in front of you. And when you don't have that, when there's an abrupt change, and then you don't have that at all, well, I think it's a shock to the system. So for now, I'm going to keep my job, my career, and go with it, because it may be the only way I can survive mentally. I do a good job at not being depressed so far. Although I am a pessimist, I'm not depressed. So I think I'm fairly lucky in that sense. So, as I said, we're going to have a guest, Paul McGinley. He's from Toledo, Ohio, a good friend of mine, a great friend of mine, former roommate at Bowling Green State University. Paul's a retired nurse, and Paul has a wealth of reading knowledge. And it'll be great to hear from him. I haven't talked with Paul for a few weeks, so it'll be good to see him again. So he should be dropping by any moment now. Also, I haven't gone to the commentary, but I will be going to that. So if you have any kind of important commentary you want to make, check it out. We'll post it, and it'll be good to hear from you all. Let's see who's in the chat room right now. I can just give my hellos to those who've shown up. We've got Anthony. Good to see Anthony. Anthony's from Dallas, Texas. Some interesting things happening in Texas today in terms of education. We'll talk about that in a bit. Christopher Spavins, good to see you, Christopher. Christopher, are you in Canada? We do have a lot of Canadians as part of Body Stand, and it was kind of interesting because we didn't have many Canadian members, but we had a representative percentage of Canadians prior to all this mess with Trump in Canada. So I think we've had a resurgence of Canadian members, and we've been adding around 30 or 40 members a week. So that's really, really good, because at one time it was usually 3 or 4, and a lot of that has been coming from Canada. So for my Canadian friends, it would be a pleasure to have you being a part of this, because we truly are on the same team. You are more on our team than our fellow un-Americans who are for Trump. So we got Gary here. Gary, good to see you. And motors running, yes indeed. Get your motors running. Was that Steppenwolf? Mars, what's his name? Again, they wrote Born to be Wild, Bonfire, or something like that. My memory fails me. But I think Mars Bonfire was Canadian. Now that rings a bell. Joey, good to see you as usual. Oh, audio sucks. All right, so help me out. Global, is it too loud, too soft? I don't know. Again, I am using my computer, which has just been fixed somewhat, so I don't know. I just don't know. Major white noise in the audio. we have Paul here. All right, Paul, let's get you in here. All right, Paul, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Paul? I don't think Paul can hear me. Can you hear you? Me? Can you hear me, Paul?
Sorry, Brian. I had my speakers turned off.
That's all right. I've had audio problems, Paul. I had a major problem with my computer the last 2 weeks. Logic board burned out.
You know how you play those games and then the commercials come on and go, "Rah!"
Yeah. Well, I think our audio is a little bit off tonight, and I don't think there's much I can do about it. What people are hearing. This time's still so awful. Nightmare toilet. Okay, you're talking about politics. It's white noise, though you sound okay. Okay, I don't know. You know what it is? I think it's this fan. So here we go. I had a fan on, so
That does
maybe
help quite a bit.
okay. I'm using this electrical fan because the computer did fry 2 weeks ago, and he said that the logic board got too hot. The logic board for Apple is the same thing as a motherboard for a PC, so I wanted to keep it nice and cool. So I think it's going to be better. If you can make a comment, folks, if it is better.
How do I chat on the board? Hey Joey, how do I chat? I see comments and guest chat. I can see comments, but I can't really chat. So I'll just say, hey Joey, hey folks, glad to be here. Thank you.
The fan did it. Okay, so that was my fault, and I guess there's nothing wrong right now. Paul, is there any way you can shift your camera so your face and body come up a little bit or not?
Come up.
In other words, are you using a laptop or the camera? Can you adjust it just a little bit? That's a little better. There you go. That's wonderful.
Is that better?
Yeah. So, Paul, we haven't spoken for a little bit of time here. It's good to see you again.
It's nice to see you, Brian. I'm just thinking Brian White to zero in right on my gut.
I wasn't paying attention to that, so don't worry. You've earned it, Paul. And Paul, congratulations, because you are a retired man now, right?
Yeah, I'm retired, but so could you, Brian. It's just you choose to march on, which is good. That means you enjoy your job.
Well, it's only because of teaching Russian, Paul. You know that. I mean, this is something I've always wanted to do. You know, you remember when I was in college, I never liked majoring in business, but it was kind of like the only thing I thought was available. And then when I took Russian, it changed. But, you know, coming out of school in '82, there wasn't much available in terms of teaching Russian. And I had to wait 40 years, but it happened. So
I felt it was almost like a duty to, you know, basically, I think, if I remember correctly, your parents were paying your way, and you probably felt
I felt an obligation because you know they're paying because they were you know obviously it's not just their money, but it's their effort and you know taking their time to help me. So I followed through. I did follow through. It wasn't enjoyable. I mean I liked college, and obviously being a roommate of yours, Paul, that was a wonderful experience. But I don't want to say I hated business. I just hated taking statistics, business management. There was just no interest in when you have more of an artistic type of heart, so to speak. Mm-hmm. It just rubs the wrong way. So I consider decency. I stuck with it. I was going to finish it, but the next best thing was obviously taking a language, which was kind of to me the language arts. So it was closer to my heart. And then I realized that you do have to follow what you enjoy. If I had done it 2 or 3 years earlier, Paul, we would have been roommates, and we were roommates anyway. But you would have had your major. I know you didn't you majored in journalism and switched.
Initially, yeah.
Right, and I waited a while, and I remember you mentioning something because I asked you're talking about I think you took courses in technical writing, and you said I was just going to bore the shit out of me. I have to have to create instructions for how to put together a barbecue.
Thank God I didn't do that. First of all, I have no clue how to put together anything. So Can you imagine writing about it? I'd be writing about something I have no clue about. I was totally ill-suited for that.
Right.
Yet I got an A in technical writing. I guess I had a project I was able to get into, but it wasn't that technical. But thank God I got out of that. I think I did actually graduate with a technical writing major. I totally forgot about that. But it's kind of interesting. My father was an engineer. I've got family members who are of the engineer type, if not engineer in title. And certainly at my age now, Brian, I realize I'm just completely artistically minded. My mind works, responds to the humanities,
right,
and not to the technical side of things. In fact, I have a fear and great distrust of technology.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I was talking to my brother-in-law the other night, and he feels that technology is going to save us, save mankind from this headlong plunge that we were experiencing. And I'm thinking to myself, and he listed AI. Now, I don't quite understand AI, but I guess he was talking about it as a sort of a super search engine. And I'm thinking,
essentially, I think that's a good metaphor.
I mean, I'm thinking, how is Alexa going to save us? How is Alexa going to save mankind? I mean, let's be real. I've always maintained that if we go back and man and women see their last days, what was our greatest achievement? And I think that you'll find that our greatest achievements were in the humanities, was in the art, was in the architecture, was in the great literature, the paintings, the poetry, the thoughts. It wasn't technology. Technology expedited our end. I mean, and polluted the planet, killed off Gaia, if I'm to quote our good friend
Guy Lane.
No, technology is not the salvation. It's it's not only part of the problem. It's probably one of the major problems.
Right, and it's interesting you say that, Paul, because if you remember, and this is a course that I really, really loved. It was a course called Popular Culture that I took. It was my breaking away. I know you're going to start. Yeah, Ray Brown and Jack Nakbar. This, folks, if you're unfamiliar, these are two instrumental people in creating courses on popular culture across the country.
Absolutely, Ray Brown's
turned up. That's where it started. So it started in Ohio. But Paul knows, and I'm almost embarrassed. I think I could have had a major in vegetation and soils. I remember one time, Paul saw my schedule and I had all these all kinds of courses related to vegetation and soils.
But I can live with that, Brian. That's that's biology. I can live with that, geology, whatever. But
I was just looking for something outside of it. Can I tell that story, Paul, that you laughed at one time? Okay, folks. Okay, I had to do a marketing presentation. I had to wear a suit, and I had a light blue suit. The only suit that I had in college. I had a light blue suit.
Why did you have to wear the suit? Because you're in the business section. You were used to
right, but I had to give a presentation, right? So I'm taking vegetation soils, and this class is an hour and a half prior to the class that I have to give the presentation, right? Okay. So the guy who's the professor says, well, we're going to go outside today, and we're going to live our course, and we're going to start doing some digging. So they paired us up, and I was with a young lady, and he says, here's the shovel. Now, what could I do? I said, what the fuck am I getting myself into, right? So we had to take these plastic bags, and we had to collect rocks and dirt. Now, when I see earth, I call it dirt. I don't know, like the loam and the sedentary rocks and all. I see dirt, right? And some stones in there. So he's like talking about this one's shale and this one's this and that. I'm just picking shit up. And then I'm digging, right? And I don't know if you ever take a spade, and you're digging there and you have to put your foot, and I'm wearing my new shoes on it, which weren't very new after that. and the tip of the spade would keep hitting into rock, and it wouldn't move, and I kept going nuts. I was getting frustrated. Then I started sweating, and I was getting sweat balls under my arms. Then I was taking my suit off. Then all of a sudden, I'm putting the dirt in the bags, and all this dirt goes all over my blue pants, light blue pants. And I said, oh, fuck it. Just fuck it. I'm going home. And I didn't even do the presentation because I just one of those days when you said, there's no way I'm going to get up in front of 200 people and give a business presentation in a suit where I'm sweating and I've got dirt. It's like that movie, The Out-of-Towners, except I didn't have the guts to do the presentation, and I didn't. But it was kind of cool, Paul, because I think it was random. It was a random experience, but it was the universe's way of telling me, don't do something that doesn't feel good. If it's good to you, it's got to be good for you. And if it doesn't, leave it. If you remember that song from Al Stewart, when the albums you had, Paul, is a song called "If It Doesn't Come Naturally, Leave It." And I'll tell you what, there's something even more than science, folks. That science proves, but results will tell you if something's good or not. And there were poor results for this, and it told me, don't do this. Just don't do it. I mean, I actually didn't mind vegetation and soils. I don't mind digging. I just don't like digging in a 3-piece suit, and then be expected to talk about market segments or something like that. So it was a nice thing because I didn't want to lie to myself, Paul. I just didn't. I didn't want to lie to myself. So, yeah, and that's the way it ended. I took some Russian classes, as you know. And then the last 2 years, we were roommates. It was fantastic because I only had a few business courses to finish up with. I had one asshole professor. Other than that, I was good. And it was a good experience. So, I was a little bit late at everything. And the same thing goes for me with a career. I mean, I had a career, but it was a little bit late, and then I didn't teach exactly what I wanted to teach, though I put my heart into teaching business, and then things worked out. So I don't see myself stopping right now, especially as I mentioned in the intro, Paul, that it's one of the ways that I deal with stress with this fascistic government right now, is that I have to be able to address the stress and deal with it and not let it overcome me. Because the stress is out there, but the real stress is how you deal with it. So I don't know. How do you deal with all this crap? I mean, is retirement helping or making it worse?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a certain amount of detachment. Retirement is not very good from a financial standpoint because we no longer have our incomes. I'm only living on Social Security. That's it. I don't have a huge Social Security. I spent 11 years abroad not paying into the system, so it's actually less than you would imagine given the job that I had before retiring. But so obviously I'm price sensitive. I mean, I don't think about it, I worry about it that much. But, I know you and Dave cover a lot about the Trump administration, and I don't know if you talk about it much about the economic damage. I mean, that's obviously ideologically we're opposed to him and his administration, but from an economic standpoint, the damage is tangible and I think readily understood by most people. Now, the May Federal Reserve meeting went by without any movement on interest rates, and quite frankly, the street wasn't expecting any. But the bottom line is Trump is wreaking havoc. His tariffs are his on and off again tariff policies are wreaking havoc with the economy, and the Federal Reserve, Gary Powell.
Why do you think he is such a hard one for tariffs? Is this just to get money from the people?
It's a good question. Like, why? Why would this man be so committed?
He doesn't understand tariffs, but he's so dead set to have these. There's got to be some reason behind the scenes.
Are pushing for it. I think that his aim was to relieve tax burdens on the wealthy. I really think that's it. Ultimately, he wanted to do away with the income tax altogether, wants to do away with property taxes, wants to do away with these things that really do nothing for the bottom Americans. I mean, a property tax holiday does nothing to help most Americans. They,
Right.
they don't own, the home ownership is not what it was in terms of numbers. Certainly, income tax. If you don't make that much, you're not going to get taxed that much in income anyway. What's the real tax burden? Well, of course, it's sales related, Brian. It's consumer related, and so you've got the sales taxes and the alcohol tax and the cigarette tax and the lotto tax and the telephone tax and the utility tax, all this
Right.
stuff, right? But now you've got the tariff tax, which is everything you purchase, and of course, Brian, I'm not explaining anything to you you don't understand already.
Right.
I mean, it's deeply regressive that those who don't make much end up spending almost the entirety of their income on living needs.
Right.
And if you're primarily taxing that, who are you hurting? I mean, I always wondered what the end game was with these people. I mean, what do they want? Do they want to just turn our cities into just zombie hoods?
Mm-hmm.
Where we just have these zombies that have no future. Do you know what we're going to get? I mean, if you degrade a large portion of our population, then we're all degraded. This is a very simple truth that James Baldwin always used to talk about, remember, in his essays and so on. If you limit somebody, you're limiting yourself as well. If you're demeaning someone, you're self-demeaning. This is a very simple truth that escapes the Trumpsters in their insatiable greed. And so, what is he after? I think he's after taking away these taxes that the wealthy hate paying.
No, what does he get in? This is the thing, Paul. He's not in the same. Well, maybe now he is, but he was never in that same category as the super wealthy. He was just kind of a used building salesman who's kind of just a shyster, and he had millions, but he didn't have billions, and he probably had more debt than assets. So, what is he doing? Is he doing the pay to play thing with the rich? It seems like he took the power grab instead of the money grab.
Well, I think he thinks of his family. He wants all those kids all wealthy, every one of them. And one of the big lies the Republicans, well, I don't want to say Republicans, but right now the GOP, I guess, the MAGA people are saying is that they like to quote that Trump is not taking a salary. Well, he's not taking a salary, yeah, but he's making tons of money by this speculation promotion of crypto. Crypto is unregulated, Brian.
How would he even know about crypto? Aside from the word.
It's unregulated, and it degrades the dollar. Degrades faith in the dollar. And if the dollar gets degraded, you know what happens, Brian? Our cost of our debt goes up.
Right.
As bonds yields have to rise because people are losing faith.
Then the banks also get scared because all those mortgages. Don't give them what they want. And it seems like the Federal Reserve will always bail out the banks, but you don't even know now, how that works.
So this is a very scary path. I mean, do you remember, what was it? Was it 2008 when Moody's and the rating agencies lowered the credit rating on the U.S. government debt? You remember what happened? How everybody was freaking out.
They were freaking out, right.
And but basically, Trump is undermining the dollar terribly right now. Well, the confidence in the dollar through his his erratic tariff policies. No real coherence in his policy. Do you see any coherence in any of Trump's
Zero.
policies?
Zero. It's frenetic and
transactional. A series of transactions.
Even when he negotiates with the Chinese, he acts as though it's a two-party negotiation. It sounds like he's just negotiating with himself. Yeah,
I mean, you're taking the global cooperation right out of the picture. So you're just having these bilateral, I guess, agreements, trade agreements, and so on.
Like the agreement supposedly with Iran that they're trying to get. I don't think it's going to be anything different than what Obama had. Just like NAFTA, Trump created this kind of North American free trade deal, and it was no different than NAFTA. Just a couple words here or there, and he takes credit for it.
Well, these claims he's making about being instrumental in forming a ceasefire between Pakistan and India. India and Pakistan have had a long history of going at it.
Right, and then the ceasefire, they do it on their own.
In a minor way, in a very modest,
right,
almost scripted manner. And no, he has nothing to do with that. He has nothing to do with them agreeing. They're both nuclear powers. Both are armed to the teeth. And no, it's never going to, well, we hope, it's never going to escalate to the point of unreason. Where's the source of unreason globally? You know where it is. It's the President of the United States, Brian.
Right.
There's the font of unreason, if there is one, okay? Mm-hmm. Internationally. Him and Putin, I would say, are the two. I don't know. I mean, so, we're aware of the foreign policy pitfalls, but I think the economics is what is more palpable for us. I think that consumer spending is just going to plummet, Brian. I mean,
absolutely. I mean, first of all, the ships aren't going to be coming in.
Yeah,
but I think he's dead. But he's not stupid in that sense. I think when these people behind the scenes put pressure on them to say, Don, you just can't do this because these ships are not coming from China. We've got to have these in, and the people will get mad, and you'll be the first they'll come after because they'll go after their own, and that means you're in trouble. So I think he understands that. But it's this frenetic display, like with the stock market. I will look at the Dow Jones only in the sense that I'm interested to see why is it that we all know why it was tanking, but the fact that it keeps going up like 500 to 1,000 points a day, and then he just keeps saying we have a deal with this or that. And are people that gullible in the stock market, or is this big money coming in the stock market?
Well, what happens is the stock market, you can manipulate it for a period of time until you no longer can. In other words, people get wise. When it comes to money, people get wise fast, Brian. They just refuse to. I think his crypto manipulations will get old fast, and he will find that his pronouncements don't work as well in the crypto market as they once did. Now, how does he manipulate it? Just for our audience, he starts off his own coin, Melania coin and Barron coin and Trump coin and so on, and then he has timely sales coinciding with bullish statements and this is one thing I want to talk about, Brian, because you're very well aware of this quote, because I think you quoted it, where Goebbels, the propaganda minister of the Nazi Germany, said that if you repeat a lie enough times, it becomes a truth to the people. Now, Trump and MAGA are masters at this. So let's go over some of the lies, Brian.
Sure.
That, one of them is that our dear president, along with Elon Musk, are working for free. The government. No, he's not working for free. He's making a killing on this. He's ripping off the American people with his speculations.
Right, because he knows it's basically insider trading every freaking week.
Absolutely unadulterated inside trading. I mean, he's making a statement which is going to move the market in a certain way, and he's going to retract within a week. Gives him enough time. He and his cronies and his family. I really think he's setting his family up, Brian. All those cretins that I know you can't stand, like Donald Jr. and all these.
Every single one of them. You can name any one of them.
Rich out of this. They're making money like crazy.
Well, that Kushner made a lot of money from Saudi Arabia. That Qatar just gave Trump this, magnificent luxury jet liner for free. But it's not for free. There's always strings attached. So things are going on, and it makes me want to vomit. It really, really does. But again,
I mean, to play huckster to the American people, we have this accumulated wealth from hundreds of years, last 100 or 200 years of really hard work, exploitation of blacks, exploitation of immigrants, and he is just emptying the treasury out for the best he can. It's just it's just a heist. It's a financial heist, And
But you know yourself, Paul, you live in Ohio, which is, even though it's a northern state, it operates like a southern state for the most part, for the exception of the populated cities. But you've seen these kooky videos. I mean, they're actually good videos. They're very humorous, where these Trumpers, no matter what he does, they're saying they're going to vote for him. So they just want to own us. It's just a matter of they hate liberalism. And I go back to Russia, where Russia always had that idea, we don't want to see a French Revolution. You and I even discussed this way back in college with Kerensky, almost having a chance for having a democratic government, and Woodrow Wilson, of course, blew it. And it's just a shame, because these autocratic governments just hate liberals. People like you and me, we're ground zero for them. They want us out. And so it doesn't matter how despotic or whatever he does, it just doesn't matter. And this is why it is very stressful, but it's so simple. They hate us so much that they're willing to burn it all down. And I think that it goes deep into psychology, mainly these pseudo-religious people who have certain beliefs.
Well, let's go over some more of these lies,
sure,
okay?
Absolutely.
So what can you think of something where MAGA believes it's an absolute truth and it's a clear...
Well, number one is he thought that he won the election in 2020, and he did not.
There you go.
I mean, that's a lie right there. I mean, it was one of the greatest lies. In fact, he still hasn't admitted to losing.
Well, one of the most annoying lies that I'm fighting against all the time is the belief that undocs get qualified for Medicare.
Right.
I mean, it's well known that no, they don't. Although they pay into the system, they do not qualify to receive benefits. Now, if an undocumented alien is hurt in a car accident or something, yes, he will be treated in the ER, but there's no like health maintenance care or go to see the doctor and it's covered and stuff like this. It's just for emergency only. Now, these people do pay into the system, however. Let me throw a frightening stat at you.
Sure.
What was it? Okay, I got to get my dates right, Brian. Back in 1997, I don't think that's that long ago, right before we had a 7-to-1 ratio, 7 workers to 1 retiree. As of 2025, we're down to 4-to-1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and by 2035, or is it 2050? Probably 2050. We're expected to be 2-to-1. Now, there's no way that any kind of pension system is going to survive on a 2-to-1 ratio. At 4-to-1, we're huffing and puffing. Okay, so how do we address this? Well, there's a lot of ways. Obviously the Republicans like to talk about raising the retirement age and
well, that's one way the French did that.
But another way also is to increase the maximum amount that rich people pay. Right now it's capped. I can't remember.
Right, and that's it. There's another regressive tax.
Yes, another regressive tax, and another way, quite frankly, is to address the issue by allowing in immigrants, because immigrants, we need them in part to fund our endowment programs. We have an aging population, as does Europe, as does Asia.
Right.
Okay. The only real growing area is sub-Saharan Africa. Now,
and perhaps South America because of the Catholicism there. I think that's...
Yeah. Now we are getting increased migration, mostly in Europe, from sub-Saharan Africans. These people tend to be...
It's getting too hot there, too.
They tend to be well-educated. They have degrees. These are good immigrants, okay? Now, Trump won't see it that way. Instead, he's importing white South Africans because of the color issue. But the point is that we do need workers, Brian. We need these Latin Americans to come in and do the work. So somehow they have, drawn on our atavistic hatreds for peoples that are in our own color, our own culture, our own race, and demonized these very same immigrants that we really need. And so the damage he is doing, he and his people, he and his followers are doing, really, it's incredible. It's incredible damage. It's so short-sighted. And, he and his kids are going to be so wealthy, they don't care. None of this is going to affect them. But actually it does. Like I said, if you're going to, what are you going to do? Barricade yourself for the rest of your life?
Right.
Behind gated communities and so on? No, that's not what America was about. Our strength came from middle class, a powerful middle class, which has been decimated. So this anti-immigrant rhetoric really deeply bothers me. It really bothers me. I mean, we need it from a socio-economic needs. We need
And
it.
he certainly ignored what he defended, because he hired many Eastern European immigrants for his casinos and didn't pay them.
Married to one. Vance is married to an immigrant. I mean, it's like, come on, people. What exactly are you arguing against here? What are you arguing for? You're just throwing red meat at the animals that support you. That's all you're doing.
Right.
So that bothers me, Brian. That whole lie about the undocs getting all these, drawing upon the American purse strings, national purse strings. It's bullshit. That really
Right, it is
me.
bullshit, Paul. But what I'm going to ask you is, if this type of behavior continues, how does this end? If facts don't mean anything, we have, like you say, with Goebbels, with
Right.
the ideas, the person listening can't tell the difference between a fact and a truth, and that's the same thing that Lenny Bruce said. So, if there's never a truth, there's never a lie, basically, and then you just give up. And I think that's basically what a lot of people probably will do.
And then concurrently, you knock down the pillars of education, right? I mean,
and by the way, did you hear what happened today? Now they're going to, or was it yesterday? They're going to allow these charter schools and religious schools in Texas to receive, funding, just like public schools. So what's going to happen. The public schools are going to
gutting the public schools, just absolutely gutting it.
You can just imagine what happened to these inner city schools for kids in poverty. It's going to be vicious.
And imagine for a young teacher today, Brian. I mean, the uncertainty. I mean, it's horrible.
I don't know, and that's why we have a teaching shortage in New Jersey. I know that, and in my school we have a teaching shortage. We have a lot of substitutes, and the district does everything it can. It really recruits, but
we can go from surplus to poverty overnight. It's just, that's the way
Right.
business works, right? I mean, things were looking great yesterday, and suddenly today it's a completely different picture. No, I mean, I'm just very worried about that. I think that where is it going to end? Well, I think The Economist was saying that Trump still has 92% support from his rabid MAGA followers. Okay, they're with him until the ship goes down. It doesn't matter what happens; they're going to stay with him. But what he will no longer have is those swing voters, the ones who were upset over inflation or the issues that they felt Biden wasn't quite good at solving. They all jumped to his side. A lot of, well, I mean, you'd have to do all the poll profiles and so on, but evidently it's a large number of people who voted for him will definitely swing away from him. So that we're going to see, I think, in the off elections for sure. And I was
if we have an election, again, we don't even know what, because we're already starting to get very suspicious of the previous election, as though a lot of people were held off the rolls in Georgia, and Trump himself, if you remember, Paul, Trump said, we have plenty of votes. I don't even need some of the votes, that kind of thing. I think he knew something. I mean, you and I are not conspiracy theory people. You and I both, by the way, both of us thought that that Epstein's suicide was legitimate, but even now I'm starting to wonder, maybe we were wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
No, I was with you with that. I was completely with you.
I don't think it's legitimate, but you never know. You never know. I'm just suspicious of knocking people off. In certain situations where many people can witness or know about it. I think that's, for example, Mossad hates that. Mossad, for example, the Israeli Foreign Intelligence Service likes to just knock someone off in the street, instead where, there's no witnesses and, it's not sticky to me, it's sticky. That's a sticky hit, a sticky contract in my view. So I'm suspicious just because of that. Not saying Mossad was the one that did it, and also I think amazing how. Okay,
I would definitely say that would be within the Republican Party. I don't even think the Clintons would have been able to have done that. I think that it's definitely within the Republican. I think the Republican Party is so corrupt, especially Trump, that well, just look what happens with the Supreme Court. There is no Supreme Court. They will do what Trump wants them to do. I mean,
But hold on, when are they going to turn against him? I mean, really, what they're doing is they're undermining their own positions.
Right.
And they're going to get tired of this stuff. I mean, Congress is going to get tired of this usurpation of their duties. That Trump.
But then again, are you sure they will though, Paul? Because it just we've been waiting and waiting. When is this going to happen? When's everybody keeps saying this on the news.
Right now, it's fear, right? Like Lisa Murkowski said, I'm afraid. I'm afraid
Right.
to vote against. I mean, I once that fear, if it ever gets diminished, I think that we might get. But it just shows you what slovenly followers these people are. I mean, where's all your ideology? I mean, don't you have some GOP ideology, some conservative ideology? What you're just giving everything in to this guy who hijacked your party, didn't attend any of the primary debates or anything like that. You just
Right.
and puts in only loyalists in his cabinet, and you're cool with that. You just watch
They're very
party,
cool with that. They are
party
very
of
cool.
Reagan, the party of Reagan, and you're just letting it just and the NATO and all these establishments that the conservatives played a role in setting up, and you're just going to let that go to the wayside because of the big money grab involved here. Well, let's see if he pays them back with these tax cuts and so on, Brian. If he doesn't, maybe he won't get the support that he had been getting.
I don't know, Paul. I think this is a runaway train. I mean, I've been waiting since 2015. If you remember in the beginning, Dave would argue with me. Dave would say, even if he is elected, it's going to stop because he'll be impeached, and he was impeached, but he'll be out of there. And everybody was saying this is going to happen. There are safeguards. We have our checks and balances, but it didn't happen. It didn't happen. It hasn't happened. And even if it does happen, Paul, at some point in time, we have this thing called the meantime. You and I have discussed this before also, that we have to tolerate it within this time frame. It could be 30 years before we clean this out, or even if it is cleaned out, we don't even know. Germany was defeated, but what will happen if Trump goes all the way and becomes a tyrant and we go to war? What percentage of the population will defend him? I'd almost be the type to say, oh, Chinese soldiers, come over here. My neighbor is a Trumper. Go ahead, just get.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, I don't know. I'm almost at the point where I'm willing to accept the Chinese and go along with them because it's a little bit better than what we have.
Good point.
You know what I mean? Do you remember that book Catch 22, and there was some type of quote, the real enemy is the one that can get you killed, whether he's on your side or on the other side. And that's a good point. Yeah.
Well, I think that, I'm wrestling to regain my point here, but I think that Trump, okay, so what makes it scary that he's trying to manipulate the cabinet, realign traditional power structures, the balances, take away the balances and check. What has made the dollar the dominant currency, for example, for so long? It's not just the dominant economy, because we've lost the economic.
Well, the petrodollars were a big part of that too.
It is, but it's political stability. Okay, we don't have a history. I don't think there's a single
AAA bonds. You buy bonds. This is safe.
High ratings on our government bonds. Why? Because of the political checks and balances, the stability. Brian, we have never had a coup d'état. The military has never taken over the government, not once in our history. Okay, but I can't say that under Trump. I cannot say that. Anything could happen. he is destabilizing or formerly very stabilized forces, which created King Dollar, which created, or high bond ratings, which created our eminence, or global eminence. Okay, and he is upturning all this stuff, overturning all this stuff. So that's what's scary, Brian. And I mean, I like to say I lived in a country. It was Thailand. I experienced 2 coups d'état where the military had taken over the government twice during my 11 years there, and that's a very scary situation. It never happened in America. Can we say that will never happen now with what he's doing?
Right.
I don't know. Very scary.
Well, I forgot to share this out to the channel. We have people watching, but I need to share this for 1 second, if you don't mind, Paul. I'm really, really sorry about this.
So I find this very frightening, what he's doing, and we will pay the consequences. Politically, economically, socially, we will pay the consequences for this.
Right. I just personally, Paul, I don't see much change right now. I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. No. I see it as and part of it too is because I think the majority of people in general are too afraid to do anything and not even sure what to do. I mean, look, I do this and I go to some protests here or there. But this has got to be done on a mass scale to be effective. And
what happens if you go into deep recession, Brian? Do you see him giving way? Backing off?
Well,
I mean, his advisors are going to go nuts. I mean, they'd say, whoa.
We're already, in a certain sense, with prices going so high anyway. And again, when these ships don't come in, I do think that Trump is going to declare victory with China, and he's going to lower the tariffs to 10%, and then the ships are going to come in again. He's going to give them everything in a certain sense, but he's going to declare victory, and then you're going to have this thing going on. But I don't trust him or anybody in his regime, because they're people who lack talent and lack understanding. And then when you have these emotional, visceral people, they're unassailable, they're intransigent, and you're going to have mistakes. And I don't know where it's going to come from. Maybe it's going to be a nuclear meltdown because we don't have the NRC having independent oversight. He just doesn't care. He's going to tear the environment apart. So I know the mistakes will occur. I think there just has to be a cascade of events. Not any one event, but there has to be a cascade of events where people say, we can't take it anymore. They have to be burnt so badly, Paul. And again, he's playing this shell game right now, and he's hiding it. And he's done a really good job because, I can go to work and, it's divided there. You don't really talk with the Trump or, colleagues, but where they're coming from, and everything that happens is, oh, well, this was Biden's fault, or this is the woke generation that's doing this. Look, I understand that there is a far left, but there's also a far right, and I think the far right's a lot worse. But, Paul, I don't have a lot of confidence in what I see. And you and I we talked about Reagan when Reagan was president, and that's kind of where it started. People still think Reagan was a great president because he was a nice guy, and that's about all you could say about it.
Good sense of humor, but so Trump's already lost one cabinet member. Can you remember his first term? How long did it take before he jettisoned his first?
It wasn't too long because he got who was it? The guy with the weird name. His.
Now, my understanding is he got rid of Wade primarily because the MAGA thought he was a bit hawkish on his policies. Maybe he wanted to be more interactive in the Middle East, maybe militarily. I don't know, but I'm waiting for further defections and further firings.
But see, all these people are different, Paul, than what he had before. I mean, before you had General Kelly, you had Milley, you had people who were willing to work with Trump,
Ted
But
Bolton.
right, Bolton and look, all of them, are revolted by Trump. But now
Reaganites.
you have the Hegseths and
Oh, what a
just
clown.
everybody, right? Just everybody. Stephen Miller. These are people. They are. This is Hitler-esque.
Just evil.
Evil, right? Absolutely. So this is why I don't see him getting rid of too many of them. And I think, like you say, once he starts getting rid of the checks and balances, and that starts erasing, and who knows how quickly that'll happen.
Yeah.
And then we say, these elections won't matter if you're going to knock 250,000 people off a state roll. That's the difference in the vote right there, because it usually comes down to around 25, 30,000 votes in most states.
Well, how long can you keep a gang of thieves together, before they start infighting?
Well, that's a good thing, though. That's a really good thing.
Of course.
That will happen, and that does happen. And you kind of felt that starting to happen with Elon Musk and Rubio and Trump. There's strings going back and forth. You owe me, and there's always somebody out there who will try to take advantage of the situation. Say, I want to be the next Trump. Right. But I think that's still, like you talk about dirty things, it's kind of a dirty way to do business. It's a dirty way. I mean, politics are dirty, but this is even worse. This is a fascistic regime, and now everything is off the table now. You just don't know what's going to happen. There's no negotiation. It used to be you had to negotiate for some type of bill. There is no negotiation. They get what they want. Mm-hmm. The Supreme Court can't stop it. John Roberts, as much as some people they hate Alito and they hate Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, but they'll say, well, Roberts every once in a while. No, Roberts is part of the cause. He's part of the Federalist Society. Every once in a while, he'll vote one way because he knows it'll be 5-4, and it still goes through, and it looks like he's so corrupt, John Roberts. I think we could have a whole show on him. But we have a corrupt Supreme Court, and we have one completely corrupt man, and that would be Clarence Thomas.
Oh, absolutely.
Clarence Thomas. So, it's very depressing, and that's why I say I think all this have to develop some coping mechanisms. I mean, it might be that we're going to have more alcoholics. Hopefully, it'll be more in the sense that people will just try to take care of themselves physically. And
I think it's the zombification of the working American.
And that's what happened. It has happened in Russia. They have given up, and that's why a large percentage of them. First of all, they love Putin, but some of them probably would not have loved Putin, but they just to cope, they go on his side. Why take the chance of somebody knocking at your door, and that may happen soon enough here. It happened in Newark, New Jersey, a couple days ago. With your state, Ohio, state where I lived for 4.5 years. I mean, how do you elect a J.D. Vance, right? I mean, or how do you, win the presidential election by 8, 9, 10 points in a northern state? I don't get it. And Ohio was the kind of state where, you had the labor unions, you had the auto workers, factory workers. I mean, I saw it with Toledo. I mean, look, Toledo's still probably a Democratic city, but it's not enough. It's just not
these inarticulate grievances. They know that their position is eroding, and you talk to these kind of people, and they feel as long as there's a social class below them that is suffering even more, i.e. the blacks, as long as they're suffering more than they are, then they can stomach it. I mean, it's a really, really base, primitive, atavistic view of society.
Well, isn't it in general? It's sounds like they're trying to create 19th century capitalism again, and that whole romantic idea or view of the past. It's frightening because you definitely want to push forward in time. I mean, yes, we have issues with technology, and by the way, I should mention that Brown and Nakbar mention as one of the great myths in popular culture is the myth of technology as savior. and
No, it's a myth.
it's replaced God in a certain sense. I mean, all you have to do is on a Sunday morning go to an Apple store like I did, and you see that more people are going to the Apple stores than they're going to church.
Yeah.
Because if they're in church, what are they doing? They might like.
Well, I mean, the Alexas of the world are just dumbing down Americans. You know, it's one of the major culprits of the dumbification of America. Is the internet and Google and all this stuff. I mean, obviously they can be great tools, but they're not used that way.
No, they're not.
You have to have a fundamental bank of knowledge. If you don't, you can get information from Google and Alexa, but the problem is that you can't synthesize it. You do not have that fundamental base of knowledge. So you'll misunderstand it and misapply it and elect people like Trump. So I think that as an educator, I would imagine that would be a huge concern, that social media and, I mean, technology today, I mean, we're not talking about using penicillin to knock out antibiotics, that kind of science.
Right.
We're talking about consumer marketed science. That's what we're talking about. Junk. It's all done to from a marketing standpoint to sell.
They're building addictions, and they're using obsolescence. With all the technology, as great as technology can be.
You basically, average Americans got subscriptions to cell phones, the newest generation. I mean, yours is done in 3 years, and you're off to get the new. I mean, it's a money drain and a brain drain.
Right. It's interesting, Paul. In my Russian classes, I show one movie per marking period, and you know which one I was going to show. I showed the Brothers Karamazov, and I told kids, I mean, when you look at this movie, it's cutting out a lot of things like the Grand Inquisitor and scenes at the restaurant. I mean, but that's not the point. But I said to them, this is more of a philosophical novel. You have to understand that these characters represent, beliefs in people, what they believed in, especially back then. You're talking about, the end of the 19th century. And there was a lot of deepness behind it. I said, a lot of people will avoid reading Dostoevsky in Russia because it's too intense. They like reading Tolstoy because, War and Peace may be 14 years long, but it's very understandable from sentence to sentence. Dostoevsky, he went into the psychology of things. And, I said to them, I don't expect you in Russian 1 to have a deep understanding of it, but you should have an understanding what the writer's trying to say. We're not worried that this person becomes the hero or it ends in this way. We're talking about as it goes along, what do they represent? And I think you make a good point because we've lost that. I'm trying to imbue that in students. It happened to me later than earlier in my life, but I got there to a certain extent, and with your help, by the way, immeasurable help.
It's great, but Freud loved Dostoevsky. He felt that, one of Freud's statements was, no matter where I, and Dostoevsky was there first. In some of those cases, and I mean, Oedipus, Sophocles with the Oedipus was there about the Oedipal complex. A poet got there first, and here we scorned the humanities. It's been defunded. You've got a small number of holdouts that still follow it. I'm one of them. Humanities guide my life. I'm a daily reader. But I'm a definite minority in this country.
Paul, speaking of which, psychology with Freud, I know that obviously a lot of people are turned off to Freud because during his time, he had obviously a profound effect on psychotherapy, but it was at a time when there wasn't a lot of study. You couldn't look at data and say, okay, well, this part of the brain is the id or this. But from a general standpoint, Maureen Dowd, she's a very good journalist. She said, if you look at Trump, what you're really looking at is an id. It isn't a hiccup of the id. It is the id. And he has no super ego. In fact, he has no ego in the sense.
Unrestrained id.
Right. And for those of you who are not familiar with the id, these are your your base, feelings about
Desires.
sexual desires, right? And more so, and just addictions and all those kind of things. And most of us have a superego, or you don't want to have too much of a superego because then it's a burden. You keep challenging yourself and you feel guilty and everything. But Trump is pure id. Now, again, there is no part of the brain that we can really call the id, but it's a wonderful analogy because I think that that's what we have here. We have a dangerous person operating out of the id. Now, I don't, now we can go into Jung with this collective consciousness. Could it be, that the Republicans are all kind of in this id where they're on their desires?
Yeah, we're seeing that. I mean, much of the country is just dominated by ids.
I mean, it's sickening because neither you nor I are psychologists or psychiatrists, but it does make sense when you have somebody who has just base desires that have to be fulfilled every single day, and the minute you challenge that desire, he is just furious. So, and then you have these sycophants who just defend him. They defend this bastard, and you wonder, how did we get to this? This society is just turned upside down. And for those of us who like to call ourselves thinkers, like you mentioned yourself, we were losing this ability to synthesize the information and make something out of it, rather than just say, Wilt scored 53 points a game. Well, there's got to be more to it than that. We have to understand why he was scoring 53 and nobody else was doing that kind of thing. How the game had changed. So, and as you had suggested that I, purchased that, and I did. The United States by Gore Vidal, and Gore Vidal kind of picked this up really early in his life. What was going on with America in the middle class, right? And he had mentioned things, to this very point. He didn't really like the middle class. You could see they were just going along with these basic desires, and they weren't prepared. And one of the things he said is that it's the reading novels has given way to the cathode ray tube, and now that even they've given way to these
TikTok
flat screen TVs that are perfect pixels.
TikTok and Instagram,
right? So we have students. I mean, look, I would venture to say, our school isn't the only school where kids are walking around the hall looking at the phone. It's everywhere. Nobody can escape it, but we're talking about 30 seconds of attention span. It's getting shorter. And again, it's like you say, it's okay. The answer is 42, you know what I mean? But it doesn't work because if you cannot reason your way through this, and this is, again, I think what comes from reading, because you have to, first of all, you have to imagine it. You don't actually see it. So you have to create that image in your head.
We need to ban cell phones from school. I saw it in our hospitals that staffing all had their cell phones there. The argument, I guess, that was often used was that the cell phone was there to handle emergencies if some emergency was happening at home. But how did we handle emergencies pre-cell phone, Brian? I mean, it just seems to me that that's a poor excuse to explain the ubiquity in the market, in the workplace and the schools of cell phones. I think that's a poor excuse, personally.
Well, they're going to try. I mean, New Jersey's going to try to knock them out. We have rules where you can't use the cell phone in class. You have to keep telling the kids, and every once in a while you'll see a kid, they're like this and they go like this. Right. And generally they'll listen because they get put in school suspension if they have the phone. But it's in between the halls. I don't know how you can police it. If you do police it, I'd like to see it, because you can maybe make the kids put the phones in there, but it's still a mess. And once a phone breaks or falls, and they say, well, the teacher has to pay. It's insanity. I mean, we have reached that point, Paul. I think we've reached that point. I don't know what to say. 30 seconds is the length of a commercial, and that's about the length of concentration.
Yeah, cell phones, this very device of information, serves primarily as a barrier to learning, a barrier to knowledge, and a barrier to learning. And that's really what it comes down to.
And by the way, I should add too that as the Trump regime starts getting involved with as the federal government pulling away in education, what will they do? I mean, are they going to change all the curricula across the country and say, okay, now we can't talk about
the Pledge of
Kent
Allegiance
State,
that, and all these fields.
because that's what Putin did. Putin, he has these courses on why Ukraine had to be invaded and why they were Nazis. What's next? If he gets control. I mean, now education is a statewide thing, but we'll start seeing 10 Commandments in the classroom. My God, Paul, can you imagine that too? I mean, that's just
all this traditional separations, all destroyed. I don't know. It's definitely ugly. We will not last 4 years, Brian. I can't see us lasting 4 years.
Right. I don't see, because he's going, from, again, he's frenetic. So it's minute to minute. He's a stream of consciousness. And, where is the next mistake that he can't get beyond? For example, let's suppose we have a 3 Mile Island thing again. You're right near Davis Bessie. That's an old plant, too, by the way. I don't want to scare you, but you're in the same position that I am. I 25 miles away, not even that, 15 miles away, I have a plant, and you probably think
near a water source, right?
Right. So something goes wrong, and he's not there. What does Paul McGinley do? Where do you go? I mean, and you really can't go east because the wind's gonna. This is a guy who will not handle. I'll tell you what, I'll say this: if this were 1978 and this were 3 Mile Island, and Trump were president, they would have been it for Pennsylvania and New Jersey and probably Ohio. The wind can go that way too.
Well, what would I do? I mean, I'm 65. I'd say that's it. The world's going to hell anyway. I might as well pack it in because I don't want any continued existence in a state of just pure what's Mad Max
Right.
type of world. I'm just not interested in that. Sorry, it became too civilized over my lifetime, and if I can't have that, I don't want anything. I'm not going back to.
But did you ever think, Paul, that it was going to come to this point? I think we always knew when we would have discussions. We always knew, we knew there was a future for us and what was going to happen to us in the sense that finally get some type of career and get retired, then you die. I mean, I don't want to sound morbid, but I don't think you or I ever thought that we would have this kind of situation where we'd have literally an autocrat or a fascist as a president.
Well, what's scary, Brian, is you and I might actually skate through this relatively untouched. It's really the next generation.
But
I see the next
generation out there
really taking it on the chin, and they're probably going to see the following generation taking it on the chin. I mean, we've got this descending movement of quality of life. Of living quality, it's just descending, and from generation to generation, maybe even half generations, Brian. It's happening so quickly now. Where we're operating in half generations, not generations.
Right.
And you and I might actually be able to skate through most of this, but that's no consolation. All the glories of civilization, all for naught. Which we knew eventually once Andromeda galaxy comes and collides with ours. I mean, okay.
Although they say with that, there's so much space between the galaxies that we probably wouldn't even notice it. But the thing is, the asteroid, the asteroid that hit in the Yucatan. If you think about it, the asteroid is a great analogy to Trump because he is this clod that just everything he touches just explodes. He is a bomb, and. Nothing good comes out.
Studies now about what Krakatoa did. The damage of that volcano. That wasn't even an asteroid or a meteor. It was a meteor. It was an explosion, and the damage it did, the cooling and the particulates and everything. I mean, these are fascinating studies. They really
absolutely. And well, look, we've lived such a short period of time. You have to look at the scope of things and how things did happen. You know,
things are accelerating so fast now, and I mean, this is what Guy always warned us about. That exponential change, and it's really happening fast.
I think Guy ended up being right, but not in the exact way he said it was going to be. But
his timing is always off.
Right, timing is off.
Yeah, I mean, he was this way.
Too many people were asking him, when's this going to happen, Guy? Like, he doesn't have tarot cards,
Yeah, that question. The funny is, of course, Guy's right. Guy nailed it, but his timing was atrocious. His timing of peak oil statements was way off, and we still don't have a nice free Arctic yet, but we're clearly heading in that direction. And there's no doubt all that he said regarding the deleterious consequences are all going to be real. We can't argue that.
I just don't think he anticipated someone as bad as Trump. I mean, he saw both parties as bullshit. And I kind of get that, but I always knew that, there was a big difference between an asshole and just a rude person. So
I don't think Guy was a political sophisticate, nor was he, I think, not even an artistic sophisticate. He was all science, and for that, he's right. He was right.
He was, and it's it's very, very difficult in that situation because a lot of people saw him as a quackpot, and he wasn't really mainstreamed. Like some of the people who were mainstream, you would see them. For example, we interviewed Peter Wadhams, Michael Mann. I mean, these are the names that are usually on news, but Guy just wasn't able to get headway because he was considered to be too off the charts. But in reality, Guy was correct. It's just, again, it's this whole thing about dates, and but he was very honest. I mean, Guy never lied to us. He was not a liar. I mean, Guy
the message in any way.
Right. He said what he had to say, and that was that. And he lived his, well, he's still alive, but he always practiced what he preached. He gave it an attempt.
I'm so very proud of our interviews we did with him. We had some great interviews.
Yeah, they're still there. If folks want to check it out on the iJournalist channel, they're still there somewhere.
We're talking about all kinds of things. His influential books. When he was younger. I mean, it was great stuff.
Yeah. The only thing, it became untenable for those of you who aren't aware. When we had Guy on for about 5, 6, 7 interviews, but there became a point when he was really demanding that we look over, wash the bad comments out, and that became a hassle to especially with his videos, because we did have 15 or 20,000 people watching those videos, and it's very hard to go through those comments. And I'm not in the habit of deleting comments, to be honest with you. But he was very adamant on the Reality Report Facebook page and on the channel with Head in the Box. He wanted those things washed out, and we just couldn't do it. And then he just said, "That's it." And it was amicable, but it was just, he didn't want us. He wanted his way, and I understand it. But I can't spend 2 hours a day trying to wash comments out. I just couldn't do it. But I understand where he was coming from, because I think fundamentally Guy McPherson was right. He was absolutely right. He was absolutely right. And
I mean, I think the timing was proved to be off. But the world is a big place, and it's hard to predict these things.
Mm-hmm.
And but there's no doubt it's going to happen, and we're already seeing. And I think the destruction of society, we saw a harbinger of that with COVID. The pandemic.
You never know when it's going to happen, especially with Trump.
That a little pandemic like that could do so much damage, could disrupt.
Paul, I am sorry to break this off, but I have to do my lesson plans, and I have to turn them in tomorrow morning.
No problem.
And I planned on just doing a short show, but I am so happy that you joined us, and I think we can do this during the week or next week too, if you would like to.
I'm free all the time.
Because for those of you who are enjoying this, Paul and I, this is what we used to do when we were done classes. We just sit back, chill, and have discussions like this, and it's always been the same. It's always very, very enjoyable, and you get a lot of insight from Paul because Paul's so well read, and
we had no prep for the show at all. Just came on.
It's probably better that way. It's more genuine.
So.
If you know what you're talking about, I think it's fine. Okay, that's the difference. if you don't and then you try to bullshit, then it doesn't work. But and by the way, Paul, you're getting a lot of people thanking you, and we've had a lot of commentary.
Gary, I recognize all your names: Anthony Davis, Bella, Gary,
Anthony, T-Bone,
yeah,
Joey,
lots of
Global.
people. Sorry for missing out name, but I do recognize the names.
Yeah, and yeah. So if you haven't seen all the show here, just it'll be posted real soon. And again, please subscribe to the channel. We don't have a lot of subscribers, but we do like to have a growing membership because these are tough times and we need each other. So Paul, thank you. Where's Tony, by the way? I haven't seen Tony.
I closed the door, so now that it's spring, Tony likes to be outside. Tony's 12 years old now. He's getting a little old. His hunting days are, I wouldn't say they're over, but certainly he's not as effective as he once was.
All right,
so
well, it's better for you.
Which is a good thing.
You can sit and relax when you read with Tony next to you.
I don't need presence of birds, dead birds, and things like that.
Not good. Well, Paul, thank you so much. Have a great night, and I'll talk to you later, okay?
And
see you, everybody.
Thank you.